Hello everyone, this is part 6 of my id Software complete playthrough, starting with Wolfenstein 3D and playing chronologically through Doom Eternal, although that plan may change soon. I still intend to play all the games, but I'm questioning the order now. And thank you for watching Reaper Loomish Gameplays. Today I have a guest with me, my friend Ross King, and we will be playing Chapter 3 together. I know it's been about a month and a half since I have made any content. Obviously life happens, but I'm happy to be back, and I plan to be streaming more. As you can see, I have new overlay artwork, custom art that I had set up for me for my overlay for Twitch and YouTube and everything. Hope you like the new art. And of course, I'm still a member of the QuakeCon at Home stream team. So that part of the logo remained the same. And I'm going to switch over and get straight into the game. Alright. So, new game. Episode 3. I've been trying to give a little bit of story background on each of these. And so Operation Eisenfaust, the one that I just beat in the last episode, was where the mad scientist doctor was bringing the mutant zombie Nazis back from the dead. This one, I'm assuming from the name that you kill Hitler. And I have a phone call. I'm going to end that, and sorry for the interruption, everybody. One moment. Alright, that was an urgent phone call, so I need to take 1 minute. Be right back. Sorry about that. Alright, I'm back. So for those of you watching live or the full video on YouTube, that's like a minute and a half of radio silence. I'm sorry, that was an urgent situation I had to take care of. But as I was saying, this is episode 3, and based on the name, Die Führer Die, I assume this is where we kill Hitler. So let's get started. Did you want to introduce yourself, Ross King?
Hello, I'm Ross King. I don't know really what else to say.
Alright, let's get started. We'll do Bring 'em On difficulty. So what do you think about the music in these games? Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it. I mean, pretty simplistic for the time, but I I've always enjoyed it.
I think it's interesting in the sense that it's kind of sometimes like this music for this level is upbeat, and it's kind of happy music even though you're like killing Nazis. But then other times the music is like dark to the point that it's like this is especially dark for a video game.
I'm not really too familiar with all the rest of the tracks of this game off the top of my head, but this music definitely seems like it's a little bit more upbeat and just trying to get you, I guess, getting like the tempo of, you know, you're in level 1. Definitely try to, you have like a long ways to go, but it's trying to inspire you to keep pushing forward. That's the vibe I get at least.
Yeah. So I will occasionally push walls that look like they're secrets, but I'm not gonna do the whole touching every wall thing or every wall that you know, I suspect possibly could be a secret, because that's just that's something I'll do on my own time. But this isn't like a secrets run through or anything, and I don't want to bore anybody watching, so I'm cutting that out. I've decided not to spend too much time looking for secrets. That was a short one. And let's see, as far as secrets, 20%. So what I wanted to do today is we could each play through each level and just, you know, get our own take on it. So I will reset that level. And then we can let Ross King play through and give his take on it. Which difficulty did you want to do? Well, you have control. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
I know I've talked about this in a previous stream, but you know, that was all monologue because I didn't have anyone to discuss it with. I think it's interesting that they include the treasure because in the context of World War II, the Nazis did attempt to get every piece of artwork or, you know, ancient artifacts that they could get their hands on from museums and steal everything they could. So it actually makes sense that you would be finding treasure throughout the castle.
It's not actually aware of that at all. See?
Yeah, basically the whole plot of the Indiana Jones movie. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't even remember the title of that particular one. Alright, I guess I'll do level 2 now.
I think what we should do, rather than just doing every level back to back,
take turns doing levels?
Yeah, I think that'd be a better way.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. But yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's the name of it. I mean, of course, the supernatural stuff in the movie and the actual plot of the movie are fiction, but the concept that the Nazis were trying to find ancient items of power like the Spear of Destiny and the Lost Ark of the Covenant and stuff like that, that's real. Hitler was really obsessed with the occult, and he thought that if he could find occult objects, ancient artifacts, that they would give him power to conquer the world. And that's well documented that he believed all of that, and that he had entire teams of his military specifically searching for ancient artifacts, and they also collected artwork, which I guess you can speculate about why they would do that, but he did, you know, get told that he wasn't a good enough artist to go to art college, and then he turned into a tyrannical dictator and killed everybody. So, you know, maybe him taking over the world and stealing all the famous pieces of art that he could get his hands on was sort of revenge for that. Maybe, I don't know.
It's interesting, but you're telling me, like, was this during World War II? Like,
yes,
he was
all of this
specifically expending his, like, military resources to go around and collect art. Like, that doesn't seem like it's a very good idea, especially when you're in the middle of war.
Yeah, that is what I'm telling you.
That is insane to me.
Yeah, specifically in, like, you know, in Paris, for example, they raided the Louvre, and they took a lot of artwork from the Louvre. I think, if I understand correctly, that some of the artwork that the Nazis stole was never reclaimed. Like, we don't know where it wound up. But yeah, I agree that, I mean, from one perspective, it is a waste of resources in the middle of a war to send entire units to find ancient occult objects and pieces of artwork. But on the other hand, I mean, if you have an army with hundreds of thousands of soldiers, I guess a couple of units looking for the Ark of the Covenant isn't the end of everything, you know.
And I guess it really comes down to how many people you, like, use at that point, but even still, like, I just don't see that as a
smart thing to do.
Yeah. Seems like, you know, if you're at the brink of, you know, losing something like a war like that, then you probably should be. That should probably be your primary focus, not.
Well, the people that were close to Hitler, they said that he thought it was worth it simply because if he did find any of these magical artifacts like the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail or the Spear of Destiny, which of course is the spear they used to kill Jesus Christ, he thought that if he could find any of those items that he would immediately win the war, because it would give him supernatural powers. So, I mean, whether or not you believe those things to be true, he was a pretty unhinged guy regardless.
Yeah, I guess from that perspective, sure, but I don't know. At that point, like, you're putting too much faith into, I guess, supernatural idea rather than just trying to, you know, play it out smart.
Right.
Turn something off. Yeah. I feel like. Okay, I guess not.
This game is very mazy. That's one thing that multiple people have pointed out to me, and I find it to be true. That it is a bit of a mazy game, and the source port that we're using actually has maps, but I choose not to use that because it wasn't in the original game, which is kind of what I'm going for here, is to let people experience, you know, what the.
Yeah, I wasn't looking to use a map. I mean, honestly. I'm surprised I've actually said I skipped over that.
I will say though that the content that got new music now, a little more up, well, not more upbeat, but up tempo. I'll save in case we die and don't have weapons or whatever. I will say that the kind of ease that we're playing the game with, that's not going to be easily replicated if you're actually playing it in DOS or whatever, because I went into the settings for this source port and configured the controls for like a modern-day first-person shooter. Traditionally, Wolfenstein, control is shoot, left, right, up, and down are your movement keys, and random other keys are bound for switching weapons and things like that. I did change all of that so I could use the mouse. So you're not going to see a person play this on DOS with the level of like reaction time and speed that we're playing with, but I have to take into consideration how much I'm going to enjoy the experience. I don't think spending months on this game trying to beat it with a keyboard would be very fun for anybody, really.
I definitely prefer this way of playing.
By the way, Q and E are the keys that I bound to switch weapons.
Understood.
I find that, you know, there may be times when I'm streaming where I just don't want to talk, but when I am talking, I think it's not strictly necessary to talk about the video game the entire time, because you know, this is part 6 of this Wolfenstein 3D, and I've already said pretty much everything I have to say, you know, about the game itself, the history of World War II that's relevant to the game. You know, I've ranted about all of that quite a bit. So at this point, you know, I may just talk about random stuff, you know, that has nothing to do with the game.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Oh.
Damn.
Alright. That's why I saved, because, you know, it's going to be even harder with a pistol.
Yeah. I think you just saved over it. You did.
Do you want to play, like, after each death we switch, or just switch on levels?
It's up to you.
We'll switch on levels, that's fine. I thought when I started this the first time that I had a machine gun, but maybe not.
No, you saved over it by accident.
Oh, okay.
You didn't do the load game.
Alright, it'll be fine. But, yeah, I mean, I guess the only relevant thing to the game that I can talk about now is that, and again, you know, I think I've said this before on the stream, I don't want to rub people the wrong way as far as discussing political things, because that's a really contentious subject for the United States right now. But I will say, you know, that the idea that, you know, a group of people recently, depending on your perspective, may have or may not have, I don't know, intended to, you know, do a government coup in the capital. That, you know, is very much tied into what happened with Hitler. And actually, if I remember correctly, and I could be off a little bit, but I think that he actually lost an election, so he took over. Something along those lines. So I guess that's the only relevant thing that I could add that's happened since my last stream. But again, I don't want to get too much into that because I don't want to rub people the wrong way politically. But yeah, I play very robotically when I play games like this that are really mazy. I just stick, I choose a wall and I stick to that wall until I find what I need to find. So I may do unnecessary repetitions of things.
Yeah, I was really surprised earlier when I went through this, like how much like I was getting lost. But I mean, there is really no sense of direction, given like all the walls are much of the same textures, and it's kind of easy to lose your way around. But I don't know, I still feel like
it's interesting with the textures because it was only like a year after this that they released Doom, so they went from a single wall texture. So like all of those textures in Doom, that's such a huge leap forward over the course of a year. But sorry, what were you saying?
Oh no, I mean that, and on top of that, if you look at the floor and the ceiling, like it's just one general light. It's just a color. Like there's no height difference. There's no, you know, ceiling or floor detail or textures at all. It's just a straight flat that's one color.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that the gameplay of Doom is just a little bit smoother than this. I mean, I wouldn't say that it feels insanely different, but the visual aspects of Doom are just light years ahead of this, and it only took place, you know, like I said, about a year and a half after this came out, the first Doom game came out, and I just think that that's incredible that their team was able to make that kind of progress.
Well, if you also think about it, though, you have to think about this Wolf 3D. There was other games that used similar tech that its software had released to this prior to this. So I think they had been working on this particular engine for I don't know how long, but it was definitely this technology that they released for Wolf 3D. I felt like it was something they already kind of had ready for a good minute. It wasn't fully. I guess it wasn't fully like finalized, I guess, and I think Wolf 3D was like the finalization of that tech. And then, you know, from there they went to Doom, and even in Doom, I feel like I don't remember if they had like any other releases in the Doom engine other than they didn't particularly release Hex and Airtech. John Romero did have his hand in that, but even that was like kind of finalizing the Doom engine before it made its stride to Quake.
That was Raven Software that released Heretic and Hexen, and they used the Doom engine, but it was not id Software's team that made the game. And as far as games prior to Wolfenstein, the only thing the team made before this was Commander Keen, but Commander Keen was a side-scroller in the late 80s. So actually, Wolfenstein...
They made other games.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of the other games, but I can Google it after.
Okay, sure. And again, it may just be something I'm unaware of. But yeah, regardless of, you know, how many games they made, the thing that is most impressive to me is that you go from what we're seeing right here to 1 year later is Doom, you know?
No, I completely agree. That's insane, like the difference in graphics between the two games. Just Doom was light years ahead of this, and then, you know, they went from Wolfenstein to Doom, and then from Doom to Quake, and it just seemed like after every release that they were just taking like what they already had and then just fucking exponentially, you know, just reaching new limits. Yeah. And even like within, I mean, even within Commander Keen, like that, when they released Commander Keen, that was like the first game, side-scroller game, as far as I'm aware, that truly perfected it and kind of like set like the guidelines for like other side-scroller games to kind of, because back in when it was like released on PC, they had side-scroller games, but none of them like were able to like emulate or. Sorry, I keep like running around in circles right now. I'm really trying to figure out what's going on right now. But there was no other side-scroller games on PC at the time that was able to like follow the character and I swear there's like a door around here that I'm missing, but apparently not. But yeah, there's no other side-scroller games that came before that did that, and that's what they're when they released Commander Keen, that was what that technology introduced.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of set the way for what Jazz Jack of it. I think it's that kind of paved the way because that was made by what Apogee?
Yeah. And I did look up, and you're correct. They had a couple of games that were prior to their id Tech stuff, because the id Tech engine, I guess this was the first game that used the id Tech engine, and they improved on it to make Doom, and then they improved on it to make Quake, and obviously they're on like id Tech 7 now with Doom Eternal or whatever, but so this is the first id Tech game, but they had Commander Keen, obviously, Shadow Knights, Hover Tank 3D.
Hover Tank 3D, that's the one that I was thinking of. That I think it used a very similar engine to this.
Yeah. Dangerous Dave, Rescue Rover, Tiles of the Dragon, Catacomb 3D, and then after that, it was just Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake from that point forward.
I'm Dangerous Dave, I'm actually pretty sure that came out before Commander Keen, and I think that was their first step into the 2D side-scroller. I think that's what that was.
Let's see. Their very first game was Invasion of the Vorticons, which is like the very, very first Commander Keen game. And then they did all of the other games I listed, and then after those games, between all of those side games and Wolfenstein, then they went back and released new Commander Keen games.
I think Catacombs and the Hover Tank, I think they use very similar engines to this game in particular. I
guarantee you that that those were stepping stones for the programmers to make this. Yeah. They weren't officially id Tech video games, but they played a role. And I find it interesting that for older games, first off, because the length of games was so short, they had to make them harder. But also, there were so many ways that you could make a game harder. Like, you look at, like, bullet hell video games, like, I was gonna say Mega Man. I mean, that's almost a bad example, but you look at, like, the original Contra and things like that. They were just unpleasantly difficult. I don't feel that Wolfenstein is that way. I feel like the maziness of the games and then the bosses are what made it more difficult than a modern video game.
Yeah, I don't remember half of the shit that I'm looking at, and I don't know why. It feels like I generally feel like I have like a pretty good sense of direction, but with this game, it's just my mind's completely boggled. Like when I'm just exploring and going through this, and even earlier, I'm just like, man, I swear, like I've been through. There was like that little door tucked in the corner that I kept using, so it was really, really weird.
And I feel like that's an intentional design by them, because again, the whole formula for video games in the 80s and very early 90s was make the games as difficult as possible. So that
way you keep playing it.
Exactly, because they didn't have the ability with floppy disks and cartridges to make a super long game, so they made the game hard to give you more gameplay time. And then, of course, of course, there's also the fact that a lot of games like this one, for example, included tons and tons of secret items and areas, so that would bring you back even if you did have the skill to beat it, you know, relatively quickly.
Gave it more replay value because it made you want to find those secrets and see what you were missing.
Yeah, especially since, you know, the internet wasn't what it is now. So if you found a secret, you might be the only kid at your school who knows how to do it, and, you know, then that gives you some level of respect or whatever.
I feel like the difficulty approach as far as this game goes is, I mean, like it can be difficult, especially like in the hardest difficulty. At that point, you really have to go out of your way to like make sure you're just like taking like the most minimal damage possible. But like you said, it feels like the effort was put more so into making everything really complicated as far as like the level design and everything, like a lot more built around a maze, just so that way you would. If that was what ultimately consumed your time the most in this game, not really the difficulty itself, is going through all these mazes, and then if you die, you know, starting all the way back from the beginning, unless you're saving every step of the way. And, you know, and that, like, I imagine that you didn't save every step of the way, and having to go through all these mazes again and trying to retrack and retrace all your steps, especially when you have very little visual references to like really acknowledge like what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
At times, it almost feels like it's like you're in like a maze of mirrors.
Yeah, and for me, I mentioned this in a previous stream, but again, that's all monologue. It's me just rambling, you know, because I don't have anyone to talk to while I'm on stream. So, one thing I had mentioned previously is the reason I'm good at mazes like this is, ever since I was an extremely young child, I've been way big into Diablo 1. Like, to this day, I'm still an active member of the online community of modders, and, you know, a lot of people don't know that Diablo 1 is still in active development, you know, from fans. Like, if you just Google Diablo the Hell 2, or the name Mordor, obviously a Lord of the Rings reference. That guy, I know him, and he's really awesome, and he's been expanding the game, adding items, adding areas for like 15 years now, and it's really crazy how long the game is now if you get his version of it. But anyways, what I'm getting at is that I was always a huge Diablo 1 fan, but, you know, I, you know, obviously have a bit of OCD, and I felt like I needed to find everything that was available in Diablo in every playthrough, because obviously the maps are randomly generated each time you play the game. It's never the same maps, and I wanted to make sure I found every item in every playthrough. So what I did as a child is I developed a system of finding all the items by making sure I had cleared the entire map. And the way to do that without, you know, drawing charts or racking your brain or, you know, taking screenshots or whatever you may think of, the easiest way is pick a wall, like that's the wall, and you hug that wall, and you just keep hugging it. And no matter how mazy the levels in Diablo or Wolfenstein or whatever get, if you keep hugging that wall, you'll get through it. The only anomalies are open things like that there in the middle, right there, because that's not part of the exterior wall. So say that this was a room that had a room inside of it. So when you see that, you obviously deviate from hugging this wall to go in there and, you know, hug this wall. Then when you're done, you go back to hugging this wall. And it's just a system I developed as a kid. And I've even used it in real life when I'm like disoriented or lost somewhere. And so I generally am really good at mazy video games, simply because I use that tactic, that strategy.
It's interesting that you say that you developed that from Diablo. I mean, with the Diablo, at least you had a map.
That's true. But I'm not sure if maybe as a young child I didn't know about the map feature for a while, or if maybe it was a way for me to chart the map quickly, or I'm not sure why I came up with that. I came up with it as like a 6-year-old, so you'd have to ask 6-year-old me why I came up with that idea, but it's proven very useful in a lot of instances
to make otherwise difficult, mazy video games a lot easier.
I mean, to be fair though, I feel like from what I do remember about the Diablo 1 map, I don't think that the outside walls were very much defined as far as I don't think they had all the line depths or whatever, or I guess the borders of the outside of the map really drawn out. I don't know. I remember, I feel like the map system in Diablo 1 in comparison to Diablo 2 wasn't as refined.
That's true. And the maps were very vague, which may be part of the reason why I developed that system. If you want to save in case you die, so you can keep the Gatling gun.
Right here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oops.
That's okay. We actually have a few viewers watching, so to those people, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoy it, and if you did catch that radio silence at the beginning, sorry about that.
Yeah, this is fair.
One thing I've discussed with my brother at length, because I'm pretty invested in, you know, the whole id Software lore. I know that a lot of people say that it's all BS that they came up with to just at least say they had a story, but that it was never actually a real story. And I guess I can see that, but I try to fill in the gaps for myself, because the fact that id Software made the story for their video games so vague allows the fans to find ways to connect everything. And one thing I had discussed with my younger brother is, you know, it's been implied, well actually it's been explicitly stated, that BJ Blazkowicz is Doom Guy's grandfather. And my initial thought to that was, that's lame, because Doom Guy is so much, you know, more of a threat than BJ Blazkowicz, because BJ Blazkowicz just fought humans, whereas Doom Guy fought all the demons in hell. But then I realized something. You take a single human being and give him a knife and tell him to take down the entire Nazi army, and he does it. I could see him being the grandfather, you know?
Yeah, although, to be fair, it was, he had a pistol to start.
Okay, I wasn't...
But even still, and, like,
yeah.
you're starting off with the pistol and going up against, like, submachine guns and stuff, so...
But if you just think about it being a real-life scenario, one man killing the entire Nazi army, I suppose that man has earned the right to be Doom Guy's grandfather.
Yeah, I think it was in with the Doom RPG that lore got fully established or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's true. And I have those games. And I thought about playing them on stream. I even actually have it set up for me to do so. I got all the software I needed and the ROMs and everything to be able to play the Doom and Wolfenstein RPG games as part of this. I'm not sure if I will. I'm not sure if I'll do that or not, but I have the games available. And, you know, if I do get a following of people who are interested in seeing everything that id Software made, at least after Commander Keen anyways, then I will, you know, take the time to play through the RPGs. The only thing I won't be able to show, because I can even go back and do Commander Keen and all those other games, I could literally do everything id Software has released. I already own most of it anyways, because I'm pretty, I wouldn't say obsessed with their company, but I really enjoy it. You know, the thing is, sorry, trying to focus but also talk. I will not be able to include one game. There's a single game id Software made that I could not include, and that would be the Doom rail shooter that they released for iOS for the iPhone, because that game is abandonware, obviously, at this point, and I've done some research. The only way to get the APK is to buy a device from someone that already has that game installed, because the APK was never backed up on the internet. So basically, I would have to pay someone who owns an old iPhone with the Doom game installed for me to stream it for you guys. And I've actually looked into that, and they want like $100-something to sell you an iOS device with the game installed on it, and that's kind of crazy. So what I would rather do, if people are interested in me being really comprehensive and including everything id Software's made, is I could watch videos of other people playing that game and just narrate over it. But I'm not paying $100 for an old iPhone.
You can't just like pay them to just give them, like, try to export the file from the phone itself, or?
Well, it seems the people who are in the... Because this isn't exactly an uncommon thing, actually. There's a lot of old apps that are important to random people for random reasons. So there's a whole market of people on eBay and other places who are selling old devices so that people can use a specific app that they want for some reason or another. And I wouldn't say these people make a living off of that. I wouldn't know, though. I mean, maybe they do. But it's such a significant source of income that they're not going to negotiate with you in any kind of way. They're pretty stingy, you know?
Heck, that makes sense.
But yeah, I got pretty wrapped up in the idea of owning everything id Software had ever made, so I went out of my way to get it all, but that was the one game that's just not doable. And I've even taken the time to come up with my own theories about how the universe connects throughout all the games. My favorite thing, although initially it was my least favorite thing, but now my favorite thing is the theory I've come up with for the don't die. The theory I've come up with for Doom 3 and how Doom 3 ties into everything. Initially, I could not come up with a way on my own of how that game fit into everything, but I finally figured it out. The only way that really makes sense... Sorry, these guys have machine guns. So, at the end of Doom 64, it is stated that the Doomslayer realized that any time that he defeated the hordes of hell and went back to Earth, that they would always come after him. They would always come back and invade Earth again. And the only way for him to keep them from invading Earth was for him to go to hell and keep them in check for all eternity. He would just go to hell and stay there, and he would fight them forever to keep them from coming back to Earth. And... Or no, that wasn't at the end of Doom. Was that Doom 64, or, was that... Yeah, that was Doom 64. For some reason, I was thinking maybe it was Final Doom. But anyways, but yeah, so when that happened, it was stated that in Doom Eternal and Doom 2016, it was stated that there were portals in Hell where he could travel through time, through dimensions, and everything else. So, it's my opinion that Doom 3 is where he travels through a portal to another timeline or another universe to fight the hordes of hell there. And that would explain why the story is so wonky, the timeline, the years don't add up. It was the Doomslayer going to another universe or another timeline to stop them from invading that place. And, you know, people have asked me, well, if that's the case, then why, you know, did he have a different rank, a lower rank in the Marines than he did in his original timeline? And my answer to that is, if there was no Doomslayer in this timeline, what he probably did is enlisted in the military so that he could get transferred on a ship to the planet he needed to be on to stop the aliens. So he would have been a very low rank at that point. I mean, it all adds up in my mind anyways.
I thought maybe you were going to go along the lines of he went to Mars so that way they would stop invading Earth, and then go from there.
Well, the fun thing about it is that you can make up whatever you want because it's such a vague story that you can fill in the gaps however you feel like. But that's just the way that I like to imagine it. But there's no right or wrong answer, you know?
No, I understand. I just, I mean, the whole idea of like if he's like going into like he has a lower rank when he goes into Doom 3 than he was in Doom 2. Maybe at that point I mean, he was with Union Aerospace Corporation. Maybe it initially dissolved after he, the events of Final Doom 64, and then got resurrected, and then he ended up having to, I don't know, obviously this is all just stuff coming out of the top of my head, but
yeah,
just maybe he ended up wanting to further pursue that because that obviously they had connections in the sense of, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know the exact lore of the first Dooms, but I'm assuming that Union Aerospace Corporation, even back then, was the primary, and like there was a result of the demons coming in to begin with.
Initially, the UAC was they were testing portals, and they were like, your typical greedy corporation. They wanted to make money, but somehow, some way or another, they controlled their own military, like an entire military, they controlled it. So I guess the implication is that in addition to doing experiments on interdimensional portals, they also had such a corporate power on Earth that they were able to control entire militaries. Like maybe they, as a corporation, owned a country or something, but that was what they were doing up there, was testing portals, and they ended up opening up one that led to hell, and that's how it all happened.
Yeah, because I think in the first game it was Deimos. I think
it's Phobos and Deimos.
Okay. I thought it was pronounced Deimos. I don't know.
Well, it could be. It could be.
I honestly don't know. Anyways, it's Phobos and Deimos, or Deimos, and then from there, I guess you go back to Hell. I mean, you go back to Earth in Doom 2, and then I'm not really sure what happens after Doom 2, like where you're at. Doom 3 specifically is supposed to be on Mars, as far as I know.
Yeah, it is. I had all this typed up because I wanted to talk about it in my streams. I wanted it to be a part of my streams, so I had typed it all up so I wouldn't forget about it. Although at this point, I don't remember everything I typed up. I'd have to look at it, but from what I remember, Final Doom, they invade Earth.
You can open that?
I can. I'm just talking. I'm just
okay.
yeah. I'm just chatting. In Final Doom, like Plutonia and TNT, I hadn't saved in a long time.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. You know, we can do this again live, and I may cut the second run of this, or if the conversation is interesting, I'll keep it, but it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, but...
Do you want me to play so you can talk?
No, it's fine. I'm just trying not to... I have people coming from both sides. I'm just trying not to die. But Final Doom, what happens is he's already returned to Earth and saved it, right? But they open a portal directly to Earth, and that's the Plutonia experiment. And TNT evolution is part of the same, you know, whole thing there. Now, it is never stated what the master levels are. I personally choose to believe, because I mean, I'm assuming you've played the master levels.
I mean, I play through them, but like it's been, I probably only, I don't think I've played all of them all the way through. It's honestly been such a long time. I'd have to play through them again to really remember what's going on over there.
So, the master levels, the textures and the art and the enemy placement deviates from all the other games that use that engine. It's so weird and different, and the textures are so random, and the map functionality is so random, and the enemy placement, it's all so strange and random, and it's clearly not intended to be cohesive. As a matter of fact, they had different people design each level. I mean, there were, you know, a few instances where 2 levels were designed by the same person, but generally every level was designed by a different person. So it was really inconsistent, and they never provided a story for that reason, because it doesn't look like it has a story. And I think I read this somewhere. I don't want to take credit for this. I may have come up with it, but I think I read it somewhere. Those are his nightmares while he's making the trip from Mars back to Earth. And I think that would make a lot of sense, considering how completely...
abstract.
Yeah.
It is, in comparison.
Right.
That's an interesting theory. Like I said, I'd have to go through the levels and be interested into playing them again just to see.
Well, I will be doing them. I'll be doing them on stream, so if you want to join me for that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think maybe through some of these, maybe you plan on just doing single player for everything, or?
Sorry, what was the question?
Do you plan on doing single player for everything, or do you think maybe that would be something that we could just, I don't know, go through together? I don't mind either way.
I'm not opposed to anything, really. I don't have a set plan, really. You know, I'm flexible is what I'm trying to say. Like, the format that I had announced on stream for everybody was that I was going to play from Wolfenstein 3D, which is the first id Tech game, not the first id Software game, but the first id Tech game. I was going to play from Wolfenstein 3D through Doom Eternal in chronological order. But, and I was going to do it single player. But, the fun thing about it is that it's my stream and I can do what I want. And so, you know, if you know, I've even considered, because I'm thinking about getting into esports, I've even considered streaming like our, you know, Prive sessions and things on Doom 2 and things like that. So there really is no strict format to these videos. So any sort of idea you have, I'd be open to trying it.
Yeah, I don't think that we necessarily need to do it for absolutely every game or like every installation or every like Doom 1 and Doom 2. Not really necessary, but I mean, for something like Master Levels of Doom, I wouldn't mind going through it with somebody, just because, I mean, or going with it. I don't really think that I mean, I feel like with Doom 1 and Doom 2 in particular, like I've been through those like a million times to the point like I wouldn't really care to play through it like all the way through. But something like that, it would be kind of interesting. I don't know, just a different take on it.
Yeah. And I had not played through all the classic Doom games since childhood, and when I first started getting back into Doom, I downloaded a source port. Well, it's not even a source port, it's a container for source ports. It has PR Boom and GZ Doom and even Xandronum for some reason. But it's a mobile app. You play it on your tablet or your phone or whatever. And when I first was getting back into the game about a year ago, I paid for that software, and I was running GZ Doom, and I played through everything, like Doom, you know, Ultimate Doom, Final Doom, Plutonia TNT, Master Levels, No Rest for the Living. Every classic Doom content there was, I played through it on my phone, on my cell phone. So I have actually recently seen all of that. Oh man. Do you want to play?
Sure, hold on.
All right. You know, I have seen all of that stuff recently, but I do intend to stream it for everybody. I may be a little bored with it, to be honest. I may turn the difficulty up really high or something, but I do intend to stream all of that at some point.
Wow. Only 8 shot. I thought maybe I would have a little bit more to deal with. I mean,
there you go.
This helps a lot. Okay, now I can do what I wanted to do. There's probably a guy behind me. Damn it. I did not think I was gonna die that quickly. Oh shit.
Well,
did we even save?
We'll find out. Oh,
oops.
Oh,
I'm
you're
sorry.
doing it. You're
Go.
doing it. Okay.
God damn it.
Okay,
Go
I'll
go.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll play through this quickly because this was, you know, easier. I think it was like 1, maybe 2 levels after this. It's not the end of the world.
I think it ends on level 9, so I think we're only 1 level behind.
Alright. And what we can do is we'll keep the Gatling gun. And that will kind of speed up the process of doing the level after this.
Yeah.
If I can stay alive, I've got 5 health.
I kind of forgot the whole lives implementation, to be honest with you.
That's the only reason that I keep telling you to save is because of that lives thing.
Hey man, I'm the only one who didn't save.
Oh, it's all good. But yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just giving you.
Yeah. I didn't hear what you said at first, and then I heard what you said after I had responded, and I was just like, you know. But no. You know, keeping the Gatling gun is nice, but it's not strictly necessary to win. But the real reason that I keep trying for both of us to remember to save is because of the lives thing.
Yeah, definitely, because at that point, I'm just so used to like other games where like there's no lives, you just kind of go back to pistol start. It doesn't really matter, you don't have to really keep track of that.
Yeah. And again, it was put into the game because, you know, this came on a fucking 5.5 floppy, so, you know, they didn't have a lot of space for content. They wanted to make it as
you
hard
say
as
that,
possible.
but they have 5 episodes of 9 maps each, so that's what, 45 maps. Still a decent amount of content, like considering.
Yeah,
and,
but it came out over the course of several years. Well, not several years, but it came out over the course of a few years.
So, 'cause I remember like they released Wolfenstein 3D, like the shareware, which only had episode 1. I remember having that. But you're telling me that they also released like versions of the game that only had like 2 and 3 or something, or?
It's difficult for me to remember because they did Wolfenstein 3D, which has 6 episodes.
I think you've already been this way.
They did Spear of Destiny. Then they did Mission Pack 2 and 3 for Spear of Destiny, and not all of it was released at the same time, so it's difficult for me to remember. But what I do know that is kind of an answer to your question is that what they would do is it was kind of like a subscription-based thing. You would call id Software. Well, you would get the first chapter of Wolfenstein 3D for free. And that would get you hooked or whatever, and then you could call the phone number and give them your mailing address and card info or whatever they used to do in the 80s. I don't know how they managed online purchases or over the phone purchases or orders or whatever. You might mail them a check or whatever it may be, but regardless, when episode 2 came out, you could call them and give them your address and say you wanted to pay for episode 2, and they would send it to you. Then after that, like maybe a month later or whatever, they would release episode 3, and then you could again pay for them to send you that one, and then they, you know, a few months later released episode 4, and you could pay for that one. So they didn't all come out at the same time. It was over the course of a few months. I said years, but that's not correct. Over the course of a few months, they released all of the chapters, and you could order the floppies of each one. Now, after all of the content was created and released, at that point, you could buy a package deal that had the whole game, but initially, you had to buy the single floppy for each chapter.
I was not aware of that. I just remember because when we had the shareware version, I just remember loading it up and then saying like, you can buy the full game and you get all these you get all the chapters. And what you're saying could absolutely be correct. I'm not trying to discredit what you're saying. I just think that I just remember that in particular, just only being able to play for the first chapter when I was a kid. And like, man, I wish I could. And I know that they ended up doing like a very similar style for Doom and Quake. They kind of took that idea and ran with it.
Yeah. Here, I'll save here. Okay, we're back on that level, and now we have the Gatling gun, so that's great. Yeah, you can play. Here, actually,
Google it.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I can do that right now. Alright.
Some fucking hell, okay. Damn, 32 health off of one shot. I need to start playing a little bit smarter. I'm just trying to blitz through this.
Yeah, run and gun doesn't work for this one.
Unfortunately. Turn my sound on too. That would help. Oh my god. funny because like I remember the mouse in the older version, like it wasn't as smooth as this. I know you said you had a port. And
yeah, this is a source port that lets you use the mouse, and I could not imagine playing at this difficulty, at this speed, with the keyboard.
well, as far as I remember, like the mouse has always been a thing, but like I said earlier, like it wasn't smooth. It was this when I move the mouse right now, it feels very smooth.
Well, the mouse was an option in the original game, but it wasn't an option in the way you're remembering it. In the
you could like you had to move with your mouse, didn't you?
It would move you forward and backwards, but you could only turn with your keyboard.
Oh, okay. Remember that now. Oh my god.
I'll play, if you want me to. I just wanted to read you this real quick. Go ahead and play for a second and I'll read you this. So, the first episode was released as shareware for free distribution by id Software. And then, after the first episode was released as shareware, a few months later on May 5th, they released the next 3 episodes. Or rather, the second and third episode. And you could pay to have that mailed to you on floppy disks. Then, later on, down the road, several months later, they released a second trilogy that you could get all 3 of those new games by paying and ordering them. Then in 1993, they published the Super Upgrades Pack, and then FormGen released 2 mission packs, Return to Danger and Ultimate Challenge. Then in 1994, they did Spear of Destiny, the 2 mission packs for that. So it was piecemeal, but it wasn't 1 episode at a time, like I said. It was 3 episodes at a time, basically. I'll play now.
Alright, go ahead.
I don't want you to get frustrated.
I'm not frustrated. If anything, I was kind of like there was that one that's like a mid-save, low health, but you can just start from the beginning too.
Alright. But yeah, so they did release it in pieces over the course of several months, but it wasn't 1 episode at a time, it was 3 at a time.
That's interesting though. Kind of like the first, paving the way for the first concept of DLC.
Yeah. That's true, I didn't think about that. id Software really pioneered a lot of things that I honestly feel like they don't get a lot of credit for. I think they would get more credit if Bill Gates had followed through with his plan to buy id Software in the early 90s. When Doom came out, he said he wanted to, but then he just didn't do it.
This room leads to the exit.
Ooh.
You're gonna need keys. You're gonna need keys to go through.
Yeah,
if you want to keep doing that right now, or
but you know, Microsoft owns ZeniMax, and ZeniMax owns Bethesda, and Bethesda owns id Software, and id Software owns Doom. So eventually, Bill Gates actually did get control of Doom. It just happened, you know, like 20 years after the fact.
yeah. I don't remember the exact year that Bethesda ended up acquiring id Software. I think it was in between. It was like right before 2016. I don't remember what games they released right before. I mean, I know they released Rage. I think that was under the Bethesda license.
I'm honestly not a big fan of id Software being owned by Bethesda, but nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Now, I will say they did a great job with Doom Eternal and Doom 2016. But on the other hand, the thing I guess I'm playing too aggressively as well. I guess the thing I'm most bitter about, you know, even though QuakeCon at home was the first QuakeCon I was able to attend, I've always looked at a lot of pictures and read articles and things about QuakeCon, and I've always wished I could go, and I've always been really kind of obsessed with QuakeCon, even though, you know, I was never there. I always wished I was there, but I know a lot about QuakeCon, you know, even the in-person experience, because I've read a lot about it on the forums and all that stuff, and the fact that it was kind of this, it was a very special experience that was centered around older video games and games that weren't exactly mainstream. They were popular, but they weren't mainstream. It was a niche little thing that you could attend and find like-minded individuals. Now, QuakeCon is very much, you know, a lot of it is about Fallout, a lot of it's about, you know, Skyrim and Elder Scrolls, and not that there's not enough room for everything to be featured, but to me, QuakeCon is for the first-person shooter players. It's not for, you know, Fallout and Elder Scrolls and all that stuff. Like, to me, there should be a separate convention for those titles, but that's just my opinion, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm of the perspective that, like, when I went to QuakeCon, like, I don't really recall actually too many advertisements of like the other games. They probably just kind of like ran I don't remember if they like ran them at the same time as like the showcasing for, like, I remember when they did the showcasing for Doom Eternal. I don't know if they like ran like other showcasings in the background, so you can kind of like pick and choose what you want. I understand, like, it's also kind of like I don't know, like if anything at that point, like, I feel like the convention itself is just kind of like gathering more new blood around, and I don't see anything wrong with that.
You know, that's actually a really good perspective. I never thought about it that way. My thing was that, to me, ever since I was a kid, QuakeCon was this super secret, super special gathering for Doom and Quake players and Wolfenstein players. Whereas, now that these more mainstream games are featured, that's, in my mind, was going to diminish the appeal of QuakeCon. But you make a good point, because people may attend because they're excited about, you know, a Fallout or a Elder Scrolls game, and then learn about the classic Doom and Quake community. So you're right, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, I don't think it's like really hurting the agenda ultimately. Like, I mean, it's, you know, sure, like, it's not like the most enthusiastic thing from our perspective to, like, you know, hear that they're doing showings for like Fallout or Skyrim, which I'm not even sure if that was the case. I don't honestly remember. What majority of my time actually spent at QuakeCon like was, you know, to see like the showcasing of Doom Eternal, playing some tournaments, and then I mean, I like to meet like up with some of the people that I met from the community, and that was fun. But majority of it that was actually just spent with a lot of the close friends that I had developed within the community, and more like the con itself was great, but I don't know. Like we actually spent a lot of time outside of the con too, and the con itself, you know, I think it served its purpose, and just as far as like what you said, providing like a gathering place or like a lot of people to just kind of like get up or meet up and whatnot, and kind of like. So I'm completely okay with.
Also, you know, for both financial and health reasons, QuakeCon at home was my first QuakeCon, and you know, the things I'm griping about, like, you know, all of the time that they dedicated to to like doing things that were not FPS based,
or really related to id Software at that point.
Yeah, but you know, all of my gripes about that very well could have been something they just did for QuakeCon at home, or you know, I don't know, like maybe Jeez, those guys are like kicking my butt. It could be that that QuakeCon at home featured Bethesda titles a lot more than the actual QuakeCon does, because again, I've never been able to go in person, you know.
Shoot right here. They'll all just come running at you. Peek your head around the corner, they're probably gonna be right there. There you go. I see what you're saying. Like they're definitely like wasting more resources into like stuff that's not really related to id Software. But
see, there was only one Doom Eternal feature really at all of QuakeCon at home, and I just felt like that was unfortunate since the game is new and it's popular and it's Doom, and you know, it wasn't featured as heavily as it could have been, and I found that disappointing. I wish that they had, you know, spent more time on it.
So what exactly did they do with, when we say they featured Doom Eternal, like what exactly did they do?
They had people speedrunning it, like the top players of the game speedrunning it, and they had also people who are like experts on the game or whatever, trying to find as many Easter eggs and secrets as they can, because supposedly there's several hundred Easter eggs in the game that like only the developers know all of them. So they did an Easter egg run through to try to find all the secrets that they could find.
Yeah, I just don't really see like what else they could do with the game. I mean, maybe they could showcase like some people playing through it as far as like the other game modes that it would have had to, what it has to offer. But at the same time, you have to realize too that the game specifically is like more so meant to be a single player experience. They did put some effort into the multiplayer experience, but it's not really something that like is the multiplayer experience by itself isn't something that is so receptively seen in the sense that people like, you know, stream it, or whenever people generally play Doom Eternal, they're just playing it for the single player experience. And I thought that some of the ideas that they had for like the multiplayer were neat. There's health back there, you're not gonna get anything. Well, anyways, I did think that they had some innovative ideas for the multiplayer aspects they had for Doom Eternal, but as a whole, I mean, for the multiplayer scene and majority of games, it wasn't something that people. I don't think it's really what people wanted to see out of the Doom franchise, but I mean, regardless.
I didn't enjoy the Doom Eternal multiplayer personally, but they gave it a shot, you know?
Yeah, they tried something different, and that's hats off to them, because I think they realized, like, with that engine, especially when they had, I don't care if you want to play this levels, I think it's Hitler, so.
Alright.
Anyways, I think with that engine they realized, especially like with Doom 2016 multiplayer, which I actually didn't, like, I didn't get to play Doom 2016 multiplayer, but from everything I saw about Doom 2016 multiplayer, I thought it was done decently well. Like, it wasn't the most insane, like, it wasn't the best thing in the world, but I don't think it was anything that, like, to be a shame though. It kind of like made me wonder why they were so why they decided to like step away from that and Doom. I feel like they could have. To some, I mean, they hosted Doom 2016 tournaments. Do you know there's a secret behind you, by the way? I remember this level when I was a child. There's like a health back there, a bunch of health that you're going to need for this fight. It's go through the doors. Go through the doors. Go to your left. In between, right here.
There's another secret?
No, this is the secret I was.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you've got a little bit of latency. That's so you were telling me.
Yeah, I was watching. I'm sorry, I was watching the. Yeah, my fault.
It's all good. Hold on. I guess this is what I had pictured in my mind. I had imagined that, okay, so first off, Doom has always been a big part of my life. I played the single player a lot when I was a kid, and it was the first game that I ever got into competitively, and, you know, back on Z-Daemon and Skulltag, I played for a few years pretty constantly, and it was a big part of my life. And I guess I just pictured in my head that since QuakeCon used to be so much about Doom and Quake, that it still would be, but there was very little about Quake, there was very little about Doom, and I felt a little disappointed, especially being on staff and being, you know, a big part of it. It wasn't what I imagined, but it was still good. It was still fun. I'm glad I participated, but it wasn't what I had envisioned, you know?
Yeah, but I would also say as like a counter perspective to that, at least they're still hosting, like, when I went to QuakeCon, they hosted Doom 2 tournaments, they hosted Quake 1, Quake 2, Quake 3, maybe not Quake 3, they hosted Quake Champions. I swear I remember seeing Quake 2 at least. I'm not sure about the Quake 3 scene anymore, which honestly surprises me if it wasn't, because I felt like Quake 3 was more, like, made its way in the esports scene a lot more than all the other Quakes in general.
And they did have the Doom 2 free-for-all, which I streamed that, and I competed in it. They did have some Quake Champions events that I played in. They did not have hardly anything Wolfenstein related at all, which, I mean, you can't expect them to do everything, I guess, or have time for everything.
I guess my curiosity comes now as to like how far, where is their focus now? Like what is their agenda now? Because like as far as like, you know, they released Doom Eternal, so as far as like what the id Software branch is doing, like it's the next step, because I mean they have multiple different titles in front of them that they could decide to take. Personally, I would like to see either. I know that they're releasing updates for Quake, so I honestly don't think if they're releasing more content for Quake Champions, I don't think that they would be working on a new Quake. I think they're just kind of riding with what they have as far as Quake goes. I honestly think it's not gonna, 2016 until what, 2020 when Doom Eternal was released. So it's another 4 years probably of development before we see like another Doom game. They might be able to take the Wolfenstein title and be able to make something new with it.
Well,
but
what I would say is that they released the Wolfenstein virtual reality game in 2020, but I don't have VR, so I take back what I said earlier. The iPhone game and the VR game are the two that I wouldn't be able to show, because I'm not going to buy VR just for that Wolfenstein game. But they released a Wolfenstein VR game in 2020, so that's a very recent Wolfenstein development.
They did release those two newer Wolfenstein games. I haven't been able to play through either one of them. I've heard some positive reception from some of the newer ones that came out, but
yeah, like I said, I own the new Wolfenstein game that is on PC. I do not own the one that's on VR simply because I don't have VR. But yeah, I have one of the two new Wolfenstein games. So that's a very recent development in Wolfenstein. Quake was quite a while back in the grand scheme of things. They're still actively developing new DLCs for Doom Eternal. So I don't see them working on a new Doom game until they're finished with all the DLCs for Doom Eternal. At least not publicly working on it. Honestly, what I would like to see is I would really enjoy if they would go back to the roots of Quake. You know, the really dark, gritty, spooky, kind of horror game-esque atmosphere instead of arena type stuff. I know that's not a popular opinion, but
you're looking at like the Quake 1 atmosphere in comparison to like Quake 2 and Quake 4.
Yeah. I would like to see them do that because it's something that they haven't worked on anything like that in a long time, and I think it would be cool.
There's a bunch of clips in the other room too. I meant like in like the starter room, that secret.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like as of right now, they go in the starter room too, get some of that ammo. I think, but it seems like as of right now, like the whole Doom branch, Doom, its software branch is just really focusing on like releasing or updating content on the games they already have. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll make a title or make an announcement title or something, but I don't really think that's anywhere in the near future as of right now. I mean, did they announce anything at QuakeCon as far as like what?
No, they didn't.
They're releasing?
They didn't. They showed a trailer for the Ancient Gods DLC for Doom Eternal.
Oh, okay.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm very much a fan of fan service, and I feel like Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 did a really great job on fan service. They made a lot of references and Easter eggs to the older Doom games. I love that. Quake Champions has a lot of lore content that expands on the story of Wolfenstein, Quake, and Doom in ways that have never been done before when you buy the lore scrolls as you're unlocking everything in Quake Champions. So that's fan service that I very much enjoy. I haven't had a chance to mess with the new Wolfenstein, even though I have it. But I just want to see them continue down that path. I'd like to see potentially a single-player Quake game that revisits the spooky atmosphere of the original one. I'd like to see them to continue down the path that they've taken for Doom Eternal. I'd like to see them get creative, like with potentially, as we discussed before, they have stated in the games that there are all sorts of portals in hell, and that he can take them to other timelines, other dimensions, other worlds. So they could even potentially Well, I guess that's it, guys. Oh, nope, never mind. I was wrong. I was mistaken. Out of ammo now. Fucked. But yeah.
Said something along the lines of going down the lines of exploring like the interdimensional portals that they were in.
Yeah. I'd like to see them potentially take him to a Quake-type setting, or a Wolfenstein setting, go back in time and help BJ Blazkowicz in certain ways. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, that might be too much fan service for them to, you know, accept, but I think it would be really cool.
I think if they were going to do something like that, they should go kind of like mix it within the atmosphere of Quake, because Quake 1, the atmosphere does feel like it kind of like it meshes well with like the Doom atmosphere.
Yeah.
I feel like if you take Doom and kind of like push him into like the Wolfenstein atmosphere, it'd just be kind of like I don't know. It doesn't feel like it would mesh as well as it would with Quake.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And at that point, it just kind of feels like you're. I'm all for like these ideas of trying to like intersect all the stories together and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm also of the opinion that like kind of like you have like this whole idea of like the multiverse and whatnot. Like you're using like a cheap way to intersect everything. Like, it's not intersecting because of it's fluently happening or like organically happening. It's happening because with that kind of concept within itself, just kind of like it's like an easy way to say connected for sure, because you have dimensions, you can travel between dimensions. Like, I don't know, that just seems like it's like from my perspective, kind of like a half-assed way to say, yeah, you can definitely see these all like in like the same timeline eventually, because at that point you're exploring through space and time, and next thing you know, you're entering you're entering a portal that takes you to a new dimension, and now all of a sudden you're in the world, like you're in Wolfenstein, like the world of Wolfenstein or whatever. I don't know. I think being like, if you were to say that, at least with like Quake 1's atmosphere, it wouldn't feel like you're forcing it too much.
Alright guys, so we killed Hitler. That's the end of chapter 3. Let's see what it says. Congratulations, the absolute incarnation of evil, Adolf Hitler, lies at your feet in a pool. Whoa, I don't read that fast, come on. Alright. Lies at your feet in a pool of his own blood. His wrinkled, crimson-splattered visage still strains a jagged, toothed rictus trying to cry out. Insane even in death, your lips pinched in bitter victory, you kick his head off his remains and spit on his corpse. Sieg Heil, huh? Sieg Heil. But the adventure is just beginning, and if you like Wolfenstein, you'll love the prequel trilogy of nocturnal missions. 30 more action-packed, super challenging levels. BJ battles the Nazis as they plan large-scale chemical warfare. Fight Otto Giftmacher, Gretel Gross, and General Fettgeist. Alright guys, so that's the end of that, but I still wanted to continue our conversation for a minute. So yeah, I agree with you that I think that let's switch over to the well, I'll have to alt-tab. Alright, switching over to my ending screen here for everybody there. But I think that what you were saying about the atmosphere of Quake 1 fitting well together is accurate. I think it's the most reasonable place to transition things. As far as it being cheap to pursue the portals and things that are in Hell, they've already set that up. I mean, they've already stated that he can travel through time and space through those portals. So it's already there. Now, whether or not it's cheap to use that, I don't know. I mean, it may be, but I don't know that I know of a way to do it outside of that. But what I think is cheap, honestly, is in a way, I guess, is the way that they did Quake 3 Arena and Quake Champions, where all the characters from Quake and the Doom guy and BJ Blazkowicz all just got randomly teleported against their will to a dimension to fight each other. Like, there was very little explanation for that at all. There was very little reason for it to happen, and I thought it was kind of dumb, you know? But I mean, maybe they could finally give in to like something being story driven for once. Like, maybe they could say, you know, the Doomslayer's in hell and he receives some sort of message from his great-grandfather, Commander Keen, which I don't know if you know that. They also say Commander Keen is his great-grandfather.
I feel like the timeline's like, I mean, how long ago? Like I feel like it has to be more than his great-grandfather by that point. But I digress. And even with that kind of setting in mind, wouldn't that make? I know Commander Keen came out before Wolfenstein, but timeline-wise, it makes sense that Commander Keen is younger than what BJ Blazkowicz would be.
Let me double check myself. Hold on.
I mean, I'm not completely sure. I'm just saying that,
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm just checking real quick. What the official lore is. All right. Billy Blaze from Commander Keen. Billy Blaze is a name that he made up. His actual name is William Joseph Blazkowicz II. Billy Blaze, Commander Keen, is the grandson of BJ Blazkowicz, and Doom Guy is the grandson of Billy Blaze.
Nice.
So that makes BJ Blazkowicz his great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Makes sense.
But yeah, maybe he gets a message from his great-great-great-great-grandfather, BJ Blazkowicz, that says, I've uncovered such and such, problem or whatever, and I need your help, and, or, maybe there's some interdimensional enemy that's so powerful that they need the Ranger and the Doom Guy and BJ Blazkowicz and Commander Keen to team up to fight it. Like, maybe for once, they could actually try an in-depth literary story for one of their games. It would be a huge risk that they would probably never actually take, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah, I guess. And I don't know. When I hear you say he receives a message, how would you even go about doing that without making it sound cheesy? Because this guy that's all the way back and
Well, this is what I would say. The plot of Wolfenstein is that Hitler successfully found occult items and he harnessed their magical powers to, develop, dark magic. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that BJ Blazkowicz could have access to those relics and artifacts after he killed Hitler, and so he may have some sort of communication device that would allow him to, or even access to a portal of some kind,
I would honestly go with the idea that you put with those relics or whatever, you put BJ Blazkowicz in that sort of environment, so in that way at least they have some sort of meaning of meeting and I guess, or something along those lines, rather than just giving a message. Because I feel like when you go on the route of Doom Guy is just chilling in hell and he gets a message and then
well, that was just off the top of my head.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to say as far as trying to really mesh those worlds together, I guess I would go along the route of BJ Blazkowicz, I guess, finding these relics and then being able to, not really understanding of how to like use them, and then ended up, in that sort of atmosphere. I mean, I feel like that's a more reasonable take rather than it just feels like a bit too far-fetched to like have like this, like he's aware of Doomguy's presence or Doomslayer, and he's sending the message, and I don't know, like
well, okay, yeah, you're right. So one thing that might be fun is he accidentally triggers one of these relics and gets sent to hell, and Doomguy has to go find him and help him,
Either that, or he ends up fighting his way and runs up into him, or something along those lines. I mean, it's an interesting crossover, but at the same time, I don't know. It's something about that whole idea just seems very, very cheesy and gimmicky to me. Like about trying to push everybody into like the same universe, which I don't care and I don't mind. I mean, obviously they did it with Quake Theory and Quake Champions, but like that whole game within itself they're not developing like story. It's not like supposed to be a story-driven game. It's more so just like supposed to be an arena built with all the fighters and all the characters they previously developed. That's the sole purpose of it. It's not meant to develop a story. Whereas like with this whole idea and concept that we're talking about right now, it just feels like we're developing a story that makes everything make sense. And by all means, like yes, it makes sense, but at the same time, I don't know. Personally, I just don't think that the mesh between all the worlds is truly necessary. I wouldn't mind seeing like subtle hints or like practices, or maybe like in a Wolfenstein game, he ends up like traveling to the dimension of Doomguy, that like areas that resemble the same areas that
well,
the Doomsayers went through.
What you're describing has already been done extensively in 2016 and Eternal. When I watched that Secrets playthrough during QuakeCon, he found the helmet of Commander Keen in Hell.
Yeah, it was Easter egg.
Yeah. He found all sorts of references to the other worlds. And I understand that not everybody is on board for big crossover things, that to some people it does seem cheesy, and I've heard that a lot, actually, not just about id Software, but about, all sorts of things that I would personally like to see, and, that's all well and good, it's fine, I'm not offended or anything. I just feel excited since they've already, over the course of several years, made it clear that all of these people exist in the same fictional universe. Not necessarily for them to meet each other, although they already did in Quake, but to tie it together, to finally give it a cohesive story that explains everything, that would be cool.
Yeah, and I think to some extent they already did, but at the same time, like it's not like I'm completely against it. I just feel like, as a story-driven concept, it just doesn't seem like it's the best option to take. I mean, the way that I could see it being like implemented is to take each franchise and then, giving them a taste of each other's environment, and maybe seeing them, or like the Doomslayer sees BJ Blazkowicz, but doesn't have like very minimal contact or direct involvement into his world or his universe, but maybe you can like see like previous events that BJ's done and just see it through like a different perspective. I think that'd be more reasonable, or just from like that kind of standpoint. I don't know, like I'm just of the opinion that like if you were going to go ahead and like put everybody, or like make everybody like experience like the same universe or world together, I guess it just feels like a
gimmick.
I don't know. Yeah, it just feels like way too gimmicky and too cheesy to an extent. That's just my opinion. I'm not against it. If they did it, I would still play it. I would still find some enjoyment behind it. I'm not saying that it's completely a bad idea. I think that it just
Well, the only reason I brought it up to begin with, aside from my fascination with the universe itself, is if they continue down the road that they've taken, if they continue to make every Quake game an arena shooter with no real story behind it, if they continue to make every Wolfenstein game some really convoluted story that doesn't necessarily tie into anything, and nobody can really follow it because it's so convoluted, and they make every Doom game just him fighting in hell, eventually it's going to get stagnant. So I'm not opposed to things staying the way they are for a while, but if id Software is going to continue to work on these franchises, they're going to have to come up with something eventually that's different, you know?
Oh, and I definitely agree with that. I think another, like, I would be happy with, like, the environment of the Quake 1 world, like you said. I wouldn't even mind seeing, like, the reappearance of how they followed the Quake 2 story with the Shrog. I'd be interested in seeing stuff like that. But, I mean, even that I feel like would mesh well with the Doom atmosphere. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's all a matter of
perspective.
Yeah. We actually have a message here in the chat that I missed. I don't know when it was sent, but Guarkill says they love this damn game. I think it's a really good game too. It's great that it kicked off the first-person shooter genre. I think video games would be vastly different if we had not had this game. Thank you for the comment. But yeah, I think that they'll have to do something different eventually.
Yeah, the way that things are going, it definitely seems like they're running out of options, and things are eventually probably going to get stale. But I mean, for the time being, it seems like they have a direction put in front of them. But yeah, they eventually will have to do something different. And I think that they try to do something different with Rage. I'm not a big fan of that whole franchise, but I think that was like that's when things did end up getting stale from like all the games that they had. And I think that Rage was like their attempt at doing something different and trying to make something different, which again, I don't know. I haven't played Rage too much to give that much of an opinion about it. But I think, I honestly, if I were to compare Rage to all the other games from just an outside, like just looking at it, I think it's very stale in comparison to all the other worlds that they made.
Yeah, and you know, I think that largely the universes that they've created are really good. And I just think that they've done a lot to make Doom really popular and successful again. Like, people talk about it, people play it, it's a big thing right now. I feel like if capitalism, you know, I'm not a big fan of capitalism, but if capitalism does what it's best at, they should hire some incredible writers to try to bring Wolfenstein and Quake back to the same glory that they've restored Doom to, you know, because everybody's talking about Doom now, just like everybody talked about it when it first came out. And if they could do the same thing for Quake and Wolfenstein, I'd be very pleased.
No, I think they have the opportunity, especially with Quake, and I feel like they tried to do that with Wolfenstein. I know the newer Wolfensteins have received positive reception, but obviously not to the extent that Doom has. I think it's also a lot more difficult with Wolfenstein because at least with Doom, you can kind of bring back some of like the older concepts and re-implement them into the newer standards today and reimagine them. Whereas with how like the older Wolfenstein game, it's just so simplistic and so basic that like taking all those, like reimagining those, like they don't have like a whole lot to recreate or reimagine in today's standards. I mean, although it would be awesome, for my opinion, in the Wolfenstein franchise to see like maybe some of like the older stuff that we've seen. Maybe like, for instance, like in episode 2 of Wolfenstein 3D, you have like the zombie guys that have like the guns in like their stomachs, and then you had like the doctor that was, experimenting on everybody. Maybe they made maybe they pointed at references to that in the newer games. It'd be interesting to see. Honestly, I don't believe that no matter which direction that they take Wolfenstein, it will ever get on the same hype level that Doom Eternal or Doom 2016 came to, just because I don't think, like, Wolfenstein 3D, it was a great game, but I don't think it had the same kind of I don't think I don't feel like it had like the same kind of didn't stand out as much as Doom 2 did in comparison. I think you could probably do something similar with Quake. It's very difficult though, because they've taken Quake in so many different directions that at that point they really have to pick and choose what they're going to do with that whole franchise in general.
Yeah, and I think the biggest reason that Wolfenstein could never be what Doom is, as far as popularity, is, if you remember, around the PlayStation 2 era, they really drove home the whole World War II thing with the Medal of Honor games, the Call of Duty games. Like, they really pounded that home repeatedly and constantly for like a decade, and people got burnt out on fighting World War II in video games. And that's not to say that World War II video games could never be popular again, but it's just been done so much that it's hard to get people excited about it.
That's a fair point too, because anytime, like, I remember trying to play like the newer Wolfenstein games. I think there was one even like released around like the 2010 era, and I honestly thought it was, I remember playing through part of it. It had like an interesting gimmick to it. It was pretty cool. I was having fun with it at the time, but I remember there wasn't like a lot of reception about it. And on top of that, like, anytime that you see Wolfenstein being remade, it just reminds you of all these other, World War II shooters that were made back in the day, and it's really hard to step outside of that and make something different and make something innovative. Even if you were to try to give it like a arena FPS kind of feel to it, from like a single player point of view, because I played like from what I see about like these newer Wolfenstein games, they kind of all follow like the same formula that all the other World War II games have, and to step outside of that and maybe like implementing like a different approach and how the gameplay is, maybe that would help the franchise of Wolfenstein. But I don't think that even that is going to be significant enough for it to really like make people remember like how awesome Wolfenstein was, because even then, when Wolfenstein 3D was released back in the day, I think that it was released at such a time that like because when Doom was released, it was so hyped up and everybody wanted it, everybody talked about it all over the world, and it was like you downloaded it from a server, it was on everybody's computer, whereas Wolfenstein, I don't think it was publicly reached out to that kind of extent.
Yeah, and another thing that is actually very unfortunate in the grand scheme of things, I feel like Doom would always be remembered regardless, but Columbine really made it immortalized in the psyche of the Western world. Like, I hate to give any credit to that event, but I feel like there are several thousands upon thousands of people who only know about classic Doom because of that event. So, and I don't want to shift the conversation to that because it's pretty dark, but, I feel like Wolfenstein, as the first-person shooter, was on a lot of people's computers, and it was revolutionary, not as revolutionary as Doom. But I feel like Doom could have been forgotten easier if it wasn't for that event.
I guess the way that I look at it is that, like, if I were to talk to, generally, like, a lot of people that I talk to, like, most of them, I feel like they're like, oh, Doom, holy crap, like, been so long. Like, man, I feel like I remember that game. Most people I feel like do remember the game. There's like a lot of people that probably don't. But if I mention like Wolfenstein 3D, I think that very few select people might even remember it in comparison. If I talk to just like, average like people that I work with or people that I see at school, I feel like in general, if I were to take like a poll on like who remembered, if people remembered Wolfenstein in comparison, if people remembered Doom, that people.
Yeah, and I think a big reason for that, Wolfenstein 3D was great, right? Doom was great. Doom 2 was great. Final Doom was pretty good. I would say it was qualified as great. Doom 3 had a pretty big hype. It didn't live up to the hype, but it was pretty good. Return to Castle Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein, The Old Blood and games like that. Wolfenstein 2009, the Activision one, they didn't really have any hype really at all. Like, they didn't have a following, they didn't have a fan base. So I feel like Wolfenstein 3D was this big, huge thing, and then the series just kind of nosedived. I'm not saying those games are bad. I'm just saying that to the world of gaming, they don't have the following that Doom has.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I was trying to get at as well.
Alright, well guys, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. And again, thank you for watching Reaper Loomish Gameplays, and thank you, Ross King, for joining me. And I will make a conscious effort to start streaming more regularly. I know it's been about a month and a half since I streamed, but I'm going to try to start doing it at least a minimum of once a week. And I really do appreciate everyone tuning in today. And I will continue playing id Software games, even if it's not in the order that I originally had stated. There will be lots of content, and I'm also probably very soon going to start streaming competitive Quake and classic Doom play from time to time. So keep an eye out for that, and thank you all very much, and have a good day.